Report revealed. The NIB report is tabled in Parliament today ahead what it proposes about suspended Director Algernon Cargill's future with the board.
Crime in the country. Feedback from the Commissioner of Police on the murder of a tourist and prostitution at the port.
Deadly accident. Tonight, what police know so far about the latest traffic fatality. The National Report starts now.
Now in HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This segment of the news is brought to you by BTC, powered by Lime.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Keishla Adderley.
And I'm Kendino Knowles. As always, it's good to have you joining us.
Topping the news tonight, on the heels of a 5-hour-long meeting reviewing the controversial tenure of suspended NIB Director Algernon Cargill, the report detailing his transactions now under scrutiny has been tabled in Parliament.
National Insurance Board Minister Shane Gibson hinted at the meeting yesterday that board members tell ZNS News was just the start of the deliberations which will determine Cargill's future. Now, only our television cameras were outside the National Insurance Board's Blue Hill Road headquarters when the meeting ended late last night. Our LTV's Munnings has reaction.
Our news team arrived at the National Insurance Board's Blue Hill Road headquarters right before 4:30 Tuesday afternoon. We knew immediately that an important meeting was taking place as the parking spaces for the board members were filled. Sources at the NIB facility did confirm to us that the meeting with the board and suspended Director Algernon Cargill was in progress. After a 5-hour wait, sometime after 9 p.m. to be exact, suspended National Insurance Board Director Algernon Cargill, accompanied by his attorney Alfred Sears, emerged. Attorney Sears informed reporters no decision was made on Mr. Cargill's future with NIB. He described the meeting, though, as cordial and constructive.
It was a constructive conversation between an employee and the board, which employs him. And he addressed the concerns and questions which were raised. And we hope that this matter could be resolved amicably.
Once the interview was done, security informed our news team that Mr. Sears and his client didn't want to appear on camera. But during the interview, Attorney Sears didn't say what will happen next and had no comment on following up on a judicial review. But he did praise NIB Chairman Father James Moultrie and the Board of Directors for their mature conduct during the meeting and receiving Mr. Cargill in a hospitable way.
It was a constructive exchange, and we will move on and see what happens.
So moving on means you can't say if there'll be another meeting as yet, or they didn't give you any indication to that?
No, it was a constructive exchange, and Mr. Cargill was forthright, and I think he answered all of the questions which were put to him, and generally, overall, it was a constructive exchange.
We're not done. We're not finished.
NIB Chairman Father James Moultrie was pleased Mr. Cargill met with the board after several requests. He also branded the meeting as cordial, although he says the entire audit report was not discussed with Mr. Cargill, only the issues that concerned the board.
It wasn't a disciplinary hearing. It was a meeting looking for information.
Did you believe you got all information you wanted?
We got some information. We got a lot of information. Now we have to decide what we have to decide, and that's not going to be tonight.
Are you able to predict when the next meeting will be?
No, I can't say. Some of the board members live here, some live in Grand Bahama, so we have to set another date.
So you're saying there will be another meeting?
There will be another meeting. I could assure you of that.
The National Insurance Board directors also met with the former NIB Information Technology Executive Tuesday, a meeting Chairman Moultrie was also satisfied with. He also confirmed that the board won't meet with former National Insurance Board Chairman Gregory Moss. However, the NIB chairman is concerned about the matter making national headlines.
Media must scrutinize, and we expect that. But you're doing the proper thing now. You're asking the questions, and that's the proper thing.
Most of the board members of the National Insurance Board left this Blue Hill Road facility sometime after 10 o'clock Tuesday night. Chairman Moultrie did inform ZNS News that this won't be the final time this board will meet with Mr. Cargill. He did say, though, that Mr. Cargill remains on suspension with benefits. Reporting from the National Insurance Board, I'm Altaviz Munnings for the ZNS News Network.
Well, Minister Gibson told the media outside of the House of Assembly today that it cost NIB more than $800,000 to conduct the investigation. Now, the first report recommended that NIB Director Algernon Cargill be fired, and the second report addressed accusations against NIB Chairman Gregory Moss.
$861,000. Plus, we had a whole box with the appendices, and so they put in a lot of man hours. It's unfortunate that we have to spend people's money on something like this, but we just wanted to make sure that what was being said would accurately reflect what was going on at the board. And I'm sort of happy that we did ask for the forensic report, because we not only got to find out what was done, but we found out how the system was manipulated to do it. And so we're reviewing those processes to see how we could put safeguards in the system to make sure that moving forward, the way that the system was able to be manipulated between 2008 and 2012, that we minimize the chances of that happening that way again.
Now, Minister Gibson also gave this explanation about the ongoing saga, including a report from Mr. Cargill. Mr. Gibson added that the chairman never acted outside of his authority.
Supplied a 49-page document. And I guess, like everything else, initially when Greg Moss discovered all of the things that was going on in national insurance, to deflect from what Greg Moss discovered, he started accusing Greg Moss of doing certain things. Likewise, to deflect from the results of the forensic report, he is now starting to accuse me of doing certain things. So I'm not going to get into that. At the end of the day, the record is clear that, whenever I'm in office, I try to help as many persons as I can. And so that's his version of what happened. I guess he'll have to stick with it, but at the end of the day, I'm the minister responsible for national insurance. I have certain responsibilities, I have certain lines of authority, and whenever it's necessary to exercise those, then of course I will exercise them. As it relates to the Greg Moss report, there was no adverse finding with Greg Moss report. The board gave him a spending limit of $50,000. Mr. Cargill issued him a credit card with a $25,000 limit. The only reason why it was $25,000 is because it was a card off of the card that Mr. Cargill had. And his card was $25,000. There was a $25,000 spending limit.
Aviation officials are racing toward a November deadline to comply with global standards of the International Civil Aviation Organization. That from Minister of Transport and Aviation Glenys Hanna-Martin. Minister Hanna-Martin told Parliament today that a team of auditors from the Federal Aviation Administration, or FAA, is in the capital auditing the overall safety regime of the country's aviation sector. Cyan Thompson has more.
If the Bahamas does not meet international aviation standards, it could risk being placed on a blacklist of non-compliant countries. This from the Aviation Minister in Parliament Wednesday as she laid the Civil Aviation Safety Amendment Regulations 2013.
The Bahamas is now to be the subject of a follow-up audit by ICAO in November of this year. This is a critical audit, Mr. Speaker, as the failure of the Bahamas to meet the requisite standards at this stage could have very serious repercussions, including the following. A, ICAO could publish warnings to all of the 191 member states as to the deficiencies of the aviation sector in the Bahamas. B, ICAO would be forced to issue notices of significant safety concerns in this country. And C, ICAO could be forced to place the Bahamas on the world blacklist if lack of compliance is shown to continue.
Hanna-Martin reminded members the Bahamas was audited by the International Civil Aviation Organization in 2009 and a follow-up extended audit in 2011. According to the minister, during those audits, the Bahamas fell short.
In response to those negative findings, the Bahamas formulated a corrective action plan, the purpose of which was to ensure that the Bahamas would become compliant with the standards and recommended practices established by ICAO. In the follow-up audit in 2011, while there was shown to be some improvement, the Bahamas was found to be in a continued deficient state.
Acquiring aviation equipment and improving Family Island airports are high on aviation's agenda.
Just last week, there was the official signing of the purchase agreement for a $14 million radar for our air navigation services. Just yesterday, the government approved the purchase of screening and explosives detection equipment for several Family Island airports, namely Exuma, Bimini, North Eleuthera, Marsh Harbor, San Salvador, and the Lyndon Pindling International Airport, which we expect to be installed in those airports later this year.
The House resumes Wednesday, May 22nd. For the ZNS Network News, I'm Cyan Thompson.
Police have nabbed the alleged shooter and his accomplices linked to the weekend murder of a U.S. visitor.
But Police Commissioner Ellison Greenslade says the manhunt continues for more suspects. He spoke with our Janelle Noel Ferguson on the crimes or the concerns of elevated crime after the unfortunate incident and said officers are hard at work ensuring the safety of the nation and its visitors.
As the country reels from the negative impact resulting from the shooting death of American visitor Carl Bruner, Police Commissioner Ellison Greenslade says, despite fears from various agencies, this incident was an isolated one.
This was a crime of opportunity. I don't speak as a person on the sidelines. I speak as a commissioner with a full brief on what has happened. 4:30 a.m. in the morning, in a part of town where you would not normally have that kind of movement by persons on foot, certainly not foreigners, and unfortunately a crime of opportunity. Because this matter is going to trial, I'm not able to say much more than that.
The commissioner applauded the Tourism Policing Department located on Bay Street, which he said is solely dedicated to ensuring security